So, Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo, both players wanted by Mikel Arteta. One of them could be playing for Arsenal next season, or both of them could be playing away from Arsenal for our rivals, one at Chelsea and one at Manchester City. But the big question for me about these two players is who is better? And we're going to be diving into that debate with numbers. Of course, we have personal preferences on who is better. I would love Moises Caicedo at Arsenal over Declan Rice. I've never thought Declan Rice is a £100 million player. Mikel Arteta thinks he is a £100 million player. And in the comment box below, I think so many people would rather have Moises Caicedo over Declan Rice. Couple of you would have Rice over Caicedo, and I wouldn't really blame you because he's such a very tantalizing player. So the big question here, right, guys, in the comment box below, let us decide it once and for all. The channel decides. Is Rice better than Moises Caicedo for you, or is Caicedo better than Rice for you? In your opinion, who would you rather go for? And, what I'm going to try to do here for you is to guide you through the different aspects of the game in which every player excels, and why eventually I think Rice might be the right choice for Arsenal rather than Moises Caicedo. Although I think Caicedo is my preference. Hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast as well. It's one of those where we're going to be going very, very slowly because it's an explainer. It's one where we're going to be diving into numbers. We're going to be diving into reasons why players have these numbers and which numbers do actually improve and make Arsenal much better. If we can get this video to 500 likes, I will do one more like this on Kai Havertz comparing him to Martin Odegaard. Now, Moises Caicedo has played at DM last campaign, mostly for Brighton because of the presence of players like, McAllister and Julio Enciso. Julio Enciso playing in that number 10 role and McAllister playing as the box-to-box number 8. That means that Moises Caicedo has either had to play as a single pivot DM or in a double pivot, but still taking on that defensive responsibility for Brighton. On the other side, Declan Rice has played at DM as well for West Ham, but he's also played at central midfield. And that's why in this video, you will actually look at his numbers in terms of creating chances, progressive carries, and things like that. And he's excelling more than Moises Caicedo. The reason is he's played in a double pivot last campaign with Thomas Tuchel, and he's been given the liberty to go forward by David Moyes and be that Frank Lampard kind of guy, that kind of player that is your number 8. And then the other thing I think we need to talk about before we dive into the numbers is Moises Caicedo has played at right back before. The only two positions that Rice has played in has been DM and CDM. Of course, we saw Thomas Partey playing at right back for Mikel Arteta in the last 2 games of the campaign. So maybe Moises Caicedo could be such an asset if we don't get Julian Timber, which seems actually very, very unlikely. It looks like Timber will be signing for Arsenal this summer. Right, so let's dive into the numbers and explain why each of the players has these numbers. So let us start off with goal contributions. Declan Rice last campaign in the Premier League, 6 goal contributions. Moises Caicedo last campaign in the Premier League, 2 goal contributions. Now, this is very, very easy. Like I've said, Moises Caicedo has played deep as a defensive midfielder in a single pivot, at times. And on the other side, his counterpart Declan Rice has played in that CM role, in that box-to-box role, where you've seen him drive with the ball, to the penalty area, at times take shots, at times lay off chances, but still none of them is creating enough chances, and none of them has enough goal contributions, in my opinion. I look at players like Rodri, I look at players like Casemiro. All of them are playing in that DM role. All of them are playing in that, at times single pivot role, but they are contributing more towards goal. They're contributing towards the teams going forward as compared to Moises Caicedo. So in my opinion, that is a situation, and that is an aspect where Declan Rice is actually having much more excellence than Moises Caicedo. But I think he needs to work on that. If you're playing as a central midfielder, you need more goal contributions. You will need more goal contributions. But I think he excels more than Moises Caicedo, and both players would really have to work on that. Now, chances created. This is where Moises Caicedo excels and beats Declan Rice. 37 chances created for Declan Rice, or created by Declan Rice last season, and 43 chances created by Moises Caicedo last season as well. Now, in terms of in terms of chance creation, I'm really surprised that Moises Caicedo has created more chances than Declan Rice. But then I'm not very, very surprised, because West Ham had a very bad season as compared to Brighton. Brighton were really flying. They had this excellent season, and that's why I expected Moises Caicedo to have more goal contributions last campaign. But Rice will have the excuse, of course, that much of the games they played, West Ham was such a very, very poor side that they were always behind the ball. They were always trying to defend for their lives. They nearly survived relegation in the last 5-6 games of the campaign. Brighton, on the other side, had an excellent campaign. They played free-flowing football, and I think Moises Caicedo always had that ability to find a teammate, because we're always in control of the game. So maybe that explains why Moises Caicedo had more goal chances created than Declan Rice, despite the fact that he played at DM. Right, the next aspect on the list is passes played into the penalty area, or passes played into the box. 83 for Declan Rice, and 64 passes played into the box for Moises Caicedo. That would be a very important aspect of Mikel Arteta's system. And I think it is such attributes that Mikel Arteta looks at and goes Rice over Caicedo. Because if you look at a player like Thomas Partey, you look at a player like Casemiro, you look at a player like Rodri, the amount of times they're playing that ball into the penalty area, the amount of time they're playing that pass into the box is almost every single time. They look to find a runner. They look to find a player running into the penalty area, and when someone has made the run, they will always find him. So Moises Caicedo, that is one thing he's got to work on onto his game. You need to always make sure that you're passing forward, but your passes are a little bit fruitful. And for me, your passes are either fruitful as they enter the penalty area, or your passes are fruitful if they try to keep things ticking. Now, I think Rice and Moises Caicedo, when it comes to keeping things ticking, Caicedo would be the better player. He's got that ability to, remain back, stay back, the composure as well. So if you're looking for a player who's going to keep things ticking, receive and pass, that would be Moises Caicedo. But if you're looking for a player who's going to, at times look for that ground-breaking pass, that pass that breaks through the lines, that is Declan Rice for you, like we have seen in that metric of passes played into the box. Successful dribbles, Rice 40, 29 for Moises Caicedo. Again, Rice succeeding there over Moises Caicedo. 40 dribbles successful and 29 successful dribbles for Moises Caicedo. It is understandable, like I said, he's played at central midfield, Declan Rice, last season more than Moises Caicedo has played there. Now, there is a debate and there is an allegation that Moises Caicedo can also play in that box-to-box role. I don't see him as that kind of player. Like, I look at him as a very concentrated DM, a very, very composed DM. I don't see him as a box-to-box player. But, of course, the progressive carries are something that Mikel Arteta still wants into his side. It is something that Rodri does a lot of the time. It is something that Casemiro does a lot of the time. And I think Mikel Arteta would also want such a player. You not only win the ball back, but when you win it, you can drive it forward. You can drive with the ball so that the likes of Kai Havertz make those penalty entries, and the likes of Martin Odegaard can also make those penalty entries. And as your wingers stay wide, it gives you a lot of passing options, but it also helps the team progress the ball into the advanced positions a little bit quicker. So I think when we talk about dribbles, when we talk about successful dribbles, Rice is better, and I think this is not due to him playing only at CDM. It is also due to the fact that he's a much better bowler than Moises Caicedo. Passing accuracy, 88.05 for Declan Rice, 88.77 for Moises Caicedo. Moises Caicedo having a much better passing accuracy, but this is again explained by the fact that Rice, being that CDM, being that central midfielder, he's going to be passing some of his football in the final third, in advanced areas, in enemy territory, where there is a bigger concentration of opposition players as compared to Moises Caicedo, who wins the ball back in his half, and of course, he's going to pass much of the ball either at the center line as it crosses into enemy territory, or much of the time he's going to be playing in his own half as well. So that is another metric that Moises Caicedo excels better than Declan Rice. And of course, when it comes to passing accuracy, if a player has a higher passing accuracy and can also take more risks, that is very, very promising. I'll give you an example of Martin Odegaard. Martin Odegaard is one of the best scanners in the midfield and in the Premier League. He scans before he receives the ball. He scans before he releases the ball. And that helps him to make accurate passes all the time. It doesn't matter whether he's passing in the final third or in advanced positions or passing in his own half, he will always make an accurate pass because he's a very, very good scanner. I think players like Xavi do bring out what I'm trying to talk about very, very well. Duels won in the last season of the Premier League. Moises Caicedo 220 duels won, Rice 160 duels won. Now again, not a very big difference, but this is where Moises Caicedo then becomes a much better player than Declan Rice, because when you have a player like Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard, your defense will be a little bit exposed. Of course, Mikel Arteta will play that back three that is strong, probably White or Timber, Saliba, and then Gabriel. So we'll make sure that Arsenal have enough cover, because we will be playing more kind of a single pivot or a double pivot when Alexander Zinchenko drops into midfield. But that is where Moises Caicedo is much better, because with Moises Caicedo you've got a player that can assure you defensive solidarity. It can assure the security that even when you drop the ball in advanced areas, when players like Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli drop the ball, there is that kind of cover. There is that kind of, I think you could call it a backup unit. I think he is a backup unit in himself, Moises Caicedo. So defensively, he's the much better player. Okay, moving on to the other aspects. Successful tackles. Again, Moises Caicedo excelling at tackles. He's had 50 successful tackles last campaign, more than any other player in the Premier League. 38 for Declan Rice. Now, I think Rice is such a very, very good tackler. I've looked at his game. I've looked at many of his aspects of the game. Tackling is not actually a problem. Yes, he might not have beaten Moises Caicedo, but still, he's one of the best tacklers in the Premier League. But the aspect of tackling still brings that security and the point of being a backup unit for Moises Caicedo. That when Arsenal lose the ball, and probably it goes to the opponent, you have a player who has the ability to win it back more than any other player in the Premier League. And that is Moises Caicedo, with the most successful tackles in the Premier League last campaign. Blocks last campaign, 15 for Declan Rice, 7 for Moises Caicedo. Again there, Declan Rice, excelling and succeeding in terms of blocks. Now, blocks are more of when you get in the way of a shot. Okay, so Moises Caicedo needs to do more of that. If you're a defensive midfielder, you need to get more of blocks as well. Now, it could also be the fact that West Ham were facing more shots, and West Ham players were always in the line of fire as compared to Brighton. Brighton dominated games like so much. I think after Manchester City, Brighton could be the second team with the highest number of possession. I'm only anticipating here, because they really controlled games as many as they can. Forget the Everton game 5-1. How did it happen? I'm not really sure. But so it could also be the fact that Moises Caicedo didn't have a lot of defensive work to do, so he didn't have to throw himself in the line of fire as compared to Declan Rice, because West Ham had such a bad season and they were always under threat. Okay, but still, in terms of blocks, the guy wins, Declan Rice. Interceptions, 63 for Declan Rice. 56 for Moises Caicedo. This is where Mikel Arteta will be very, very happy with Declan Rice. He really wants to win the ball in such a clever way. He would love to win. He would love a midfielder who is smart, clever, rather than very, very physical and very, very forceful. You look at players like Pep Guardiola, you look at players like Sergio Busquets at FC Barcelona, and how that role has actually been revolutionized since Pep Guardiola actually took over. It seems that managers like Pep, Arteta, Jurgen Klopp, they would rather have a player who is smart and can anticipate where the ball will fall, rather than a player who will attack the ball or attack the player with the ball and then hunt him down. So Declan Rice there excels and would be much better for Arsenal, because that means you don't get so many yellow cards, because you win possession back by intercepting rather than tackling. Possession won 334 times for Declan Rice, 248 times for Moises Caicedo. That shows you that Moises Caicedo literally is a junior when it comes to winning possession. But then, like I said, it is also due to the fact that Rice last campaign played for a side that didn't have possession a lot of the time. So West Ham and their players, Thomas Tuchel and Rice, I'm really, really eager to see how much, of the ball Thomas Tuchel was winning. Their players have, had to do more work in terms of winning the ball back than Moises Caicedo, because Moises Caicedo's role last campaign was to be more of a custodian, to keep the ball and make sure that it was secure. With Declan Rice, he was more like a knight to win the ball and win possession back as well for West Ham. So, who is the much better player for 100 million for 100 million Declan Rice, or for 80 million pounds Moises Caicedo? In my opinion, Caicedo is much better. It is surprising, but I just think he is a much better player than Declan Rice. I just feel like Caicedo has got a lot to offer. By the time he's 24, he will be a super midfielder. But the numbers are there. Let's get the comments ticking.